This podcast discusses themes of mental health, which some people may find emotive, such as suicide or other adult-themed content. The information contained in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. All views expressed are solely those of individuals involved and do not represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever with which we have been, are now, or will be affiliated. The information is not meant to diagnose or treat any mental health condition. If you're experiencing mental health symptoms, we encourage you to contact a mental health service within your community. If you're experiencing a mental health emergency, please seek the relevant support and interventions by presenting to your local accident and emergency department or contacting the relevant emergency services.
You're listening to the Men's Mental Health Podcast, The Man Hug.
Welcome to The Man Hug, the monthly men's mental health podcast. I'm Dean McShane.
I'm Dan Cooper.
I'm Ian Pearce-Hayes.
And I'm Conleth Kelly.
Each month we will discuss a different topic related to men's mental health, which will include a guest speaker who will discuss their own personal story. And each month we will also be showcasing an organisation or charity within the Merseyside area who work within mental health to help build your signposting skills. Okay, so welcome everyone to this month's Man Hug Mental Health Podcast. This month we have got two special guests, and our first one is Chris Kirkland. And Chris is an English football coach and former professional goalkeeper who's played for various professional clubs, including Coventry, the mighty Liverpool, Wigan Athletic, Leicester City, Donny Rovers, Sheff Wednesday, Preston North End and Bury. So Chris has been actively using social media to talk about his battles with addiction and also promote recovery and well-being. So welcome, Chris.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So, Chris, tell us a little bit about your story, really. Obviously, we know a lot through your social media now, but it'd be great for any of our listeners just to hear about your own story.
Yeah, I suppose it all started 2012. So we moved up here from Coventry when I was 19, 20 to my boyhood club. You stand on the cot, we've just been speaking about it. And we moved up here to Liverpool. And then I was at Liverpool for 5 years, 2001 to 2006, and then Wigan for 6 years, 2006 to 2012. So same area, lived in the same house, same routine. When our daughter come along in 2006, I could drop her off at nursery in the morning, pick her up after training because we were done by you're done by 2:30 most afternoons. So them stuff really important to us. Go to school plays, everything like that. Walk the dog, and then I left Wigan in 2012 and went to Sheffield Wednesday. So because the family were settled and Lucy just started school. In 2012, I commuted to and from Sheffield, which is, I don't know if many know, but it's not an easy journey. It's not far, but it's not easy. So I was leaving early in the morning, like people have to do for work, no problem. But I was in the car for long periods. But it wasn't just that; it was what I was missing back home. I was missing what I'd been used to for 11 years. Doing the school runs, all that sort of stuff, school plays. And it was difficult, and when you're in the car for long periods on your own, particularly during winter when it's dark, you get up dark when you get home, you're missing things, you get home, you don't want to do stuff. And so I was very anxious, and the move happened like before the end of the season, so I was thinking I've got time to adjust, and then it creeps up, and it was the first day of pre-season before I knew it, and just started to have panic attacks and thinking, oh my God, I was travelling over thinking, well, what time am I going to be home? Going to miss this, going to miss that. And then it just become, and then 2 days before the first game, I got a little back injury. Nothing serious, but I got hold of some painkillers. But the painkillers not only helped with the pain, but it not cured my anxiety, it helped my anxiety. And I thought, I could do this. Maybe I could just take them when I go to Sheffield and stuff like that. But we all know with addiction that it quickly gets hold of you. So after about 3 months, I started, waking up in the morning. If I'd not took it by a certain time, I would feel fatigued, and I was thinking, it can't be that surely. It's only been 3 months, but it got hold of us quick, and then it progressed, more and more and more. But then after so long, the painkillers don't work for the pain, which I wasn't taking them for then. I was taking them for the anxiety, but they have the adverse effect, and they were just mentally, they were just messing me up, really messing me up.
Now, I think that's the thing with because it's painkillers and it's it's not an illicit substance in a sense, one that people sort of buy. As you say, it can get hold of you because you think that it's something that's either prescribed or something that's doing you good as well, really. So, What was the sort of process for knowing that this was becoming a problem for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was taking him out onto the training ground, I had him in my goalie bag, and it becomes more and more. So, I mean, I think I started on 1 or 2 50-milligram tablets. I mean, at my worst, I was on 2,500 a day, which I shouldn't. I shouldn't be. I was only told because it was my fitness that I got through all that and survived it. Yeah. So, but they were the first thing I thought about in the morning, the last thing at night. So it was just. But then when you get that bad, and I remember a few episodes where I took that many, that I just didn't know who I was, and I was violently ill, violently sick. And you say, "Oh, tomorrow that's me. Stop. I'll stop." And you might stop for a day, but then the cravings kick in, and the withdrawal. So you just go back onto them and don't tell anyone. Like with many people with addictions, you I wouldn't say you feel ashamed, but you just don't want people to know. It's your secret. You just keep it to yourself. It's what you do, and that's certainly what I did. And obviously, probably because I was in the public eye as well, I just thought I can't come out and say this because I was thinking about my daughter, thinking about kids at school can be cruel, and would she get stick for it and stuff like that, which has happened in the past. So you just keep it to yourself, but you trick yourself and you tell yourself, right, you'll be fine, you can beat it yourself, and never did. The amount of times I tried to stop and it just doesn't work. You always go back to them because you've not got that support network around you that you need.
What was the trigger then that actually made you hold your hand up and
Well, I retired in 2016, so I just signed for Bury. Shouldn't have done. This was when I was at my worst. So I left Sheffield Wednesday to come back closer to home. So I thought, get closer to home, go back to my old routine. I went to sign for Preston. It was only half hour from home, so I thought, brilliant. But by then, after 4 years, you're well into it, and I just couldn't stop. So I left Preston. There's other things that happen as well, like lost a dog after 14 years. We lost a friend. I was driving up to see him in York, say goodbye, and he died on the way. So listen, everyone has things in their life that happen, but when you're going through a bad period as it is, and then things sort of hit you as well, it's tough. So I mean, I left Preston. I thought, no, that's me done. But then, because I played for football for 19 years, you think, right, you can get through this. Give it one more go. So I went to Bury, which I knew was going to end in disaster. And in a way, I'm glad I did, because something needed to happen for me to get help. Because I was at that point where, knowing that if I didn't, then I'd be dead. Yeah. I'd either commit suicide or I would die from an overdose. And I was out in Bury, and I just didn't want to go. Again, I'd come back to the home thing. I just didn't want to leave home. I thought, oh my God, a week away pre-season. I thought, this is just not going to end well. But got out there, and then on the second night, I took so many tablets. I was on the top floor of apartment buildings. I just went out and stood out on the roof and thought, all right, that's it. I'm done now. And I felt a pull back, and obviously there was no one there, but I knew it was Lucy, my daughter, my wife, and they're saying, like, get home. So I rang my wife straight away. It was about 3 a.m, and she said, look, you need to get home. That was the first time I told her. And then I retired from football then, sought help from the PFA. Got off them pretty easy, which was considering the amount I was taking, I got off them pretty easy. So I retired from football, tried to make a comeback, but when you've been out for 10, 11 months and you're getting older as well, it was tough. But then I started to miss being a footballer, started to miss the routine of having a purpose to get up in the mornings. So I went back on them stupidly. And then I was on them for about another 18 months, getting to the same amounts again that I was taking. And that's when I thought, right, you've got to go away now, you've got to go to rehab. So rang up many places, sporting chances for the PFA. There was a 3-month waiting list to get in there, and I thought, I've not got 3 months. So we just rang local services and found Parkland Place, just over the water, North Wales. I was in there the very next day. Got off them again, everything was great. This was 2019, July 2019, got through that. Next 8 months were brilliant. Everything was great. I was doing work with the foundation, and then 2020, we all know what, COVID hit, and we were all stuck in the houses and went back on them silly again. Was getting them off the internet, getting them off the doctors, getting them everywhere I could. Went back to big amounts, and it was, it was April the 17th last year when I took my last tablet. So I got some off the internet from India, and they say never get them off the internet because you don't know what's in them, and these certainly weren't tramadol. Within 10 minutes I took them, and I started hallucinating, started seeing things, started sweating, my heart was beating like a drum. Somehow got home, and I was, wife always says, I got home and she said I was green, I was sweating, I was shaking. Went to bed, and slept for about 18 hours. She said I was violently ill, and I thought, right, that was the moment where I knew that I was going to come out again and say. But it was still 2 weeks after that, so I got rid of all them tablets, but I still had some proper ones. So, but I knew that was a turning point. I knew eventually, whether that was that day or the day after, or it was about 2 weeks down the line, that's when I owned up. But what we did this time was, I come out and told everyone. So I thought, right, to beat this, instead of going back again to them, you can't have any hiding places. You can't have any, thinking, oh, could I get away with that again? I can't now. So we went to the doctors. Wife come with the doctors. They cannot give me anything at all now. If I ring them up for anything, which I don't, they have to ring Leona. The postman can't give me any envelopes, any parcels. But the biggest one is obviously, well, apart from coming out and telling everyone, is drug tests at home. So my wife's got drug tests at home now, so she can test me any time. And at the minute, it's been nearly 14 months now. Wow, and yeah, well, it's just it's hard. It is hard with addiction, but I'm suffering now. I did a post. I'm suffering now. I've sort of hit because your serotonin levels come down when you're on tramadol. I'm back on sertraline. Well, I've been for the last year or so. But I've sort of hit a lull at the minute where they say it takes 2 years. 2.5 years to get your serotonin levels back up. So I'm just at that phase at the minute where, it's hard, really hard at the minute, and motivation's tough. Once I do stuff, I'm fine, but I'm not looking forward to things as much as I was probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. But I know it will pass, and I know we'll get through it, but it's just getting through it at the minute, which is hard.
Do you feel you've got a better support network in place?
Yeah, listen, if I wouldn't have told everyone, and if I wouldn't have set things up, I'd be back on them.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Because that's what addiction does. Yeah. Whether it's I'd have got a back injury, or my back would have gone, or something would have happened in life, or you just start feeling down, I'd have gone back on them. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt, because that's what addiction does to you. But you can get through it, and you can cope with it, and you can, I wouldn't say beat it, because I think you're always trying to deal with it. But you can do, but you need that support around you. Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to do it without my wife, without the club. The club have been amazing, Liverpool, friends, family, but setting things up in place to know that I cannot go and get them anymore. But you say, listen, you never say never. Yeah. But the biggest one is obviously the drug test at home. I know my wife can test me any time, and she wouldn't leave me because we've been together 24. But disappointing her again and everybody else is what drives me on. Yeah.
You mentioned as well, about the serotonin levels, and you've been really, again, active promoting on social media about things that have worked for you in terms of, working on your own well-being and things like serotonin levels. So what have you found has been boosts for your own mental well-being?
Well, like I said at the minute, I'm struggling with everything at the minute. So walking's obviously a massive one for me. I do a lot of exercise. And when I get out, like on Monday, I think it was Monday I did the video. And I just didn't want to go. And it's the first time I've not wanted to go out for a walk. Yeah. And I thought, that's just not you. Got out, did 14 mile and felt good after it. Yeah. But exercise, talking and all the but everyone's got different things. Everyone, somebody might not want to talk, but find something that you want to do, whether that's going fishing or, you've got to get out there. Getting out of the house is the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, definitely.
When them walls start closing in and you still feel yourself getting sweaty palms, just get up and get out and do something, whatever that is that makes things a little bit easier. And only you will know what that is. For me, I know what it is: exercise, going to the gym, doing stuff. But there is times when even that doesn't work, and you just got to. That's when you got to be strong mentally and say, "Look, this will pass." But it's hard at the time. It really is.
Have you found as well through other professionals within the football industry? Have you found that maybe they could be going through the same thing, but they're not able to talk about it?
Yeah, but I've always said, listen, I owe everything to football. I've been in football all my life, and it's given the life I have. But I didn't do it for football. I did it for society. Because there's people that I know that I've known for years and years that have got the same issue, and I never had any idea. But yeah, there is a lot of footballers that have been in touch and that have, said, look, because that's what happened. It's no hiding place with football. Yeah. You get given anti-inflammatories, you get given painkillers, but then you can get them outside of it. I was getting them outside the GP, so the clubs I was at was never on them at Liverpool. Wigan, no. A couple of times at Wigan, maybe, but that's through the doctor, which is monitored. But it was when it was through the GP and obviously off the internet I was getting them, so it wasn't through the clubs. So you can get hold of anything these days, can't you?
Yeah. So what would your main advice be for anyone who's going through similar?
I don't think you can beat it on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I hope you can. I'm sure there is maybe some people out there that have done and have to, because they haven't got anyone else. But yeah, I wouldn't be sitting here now without what I've done, telling people, family, friends, and setting things up not to fail again. I'm not going to sit here and say I never will. I could be on the way home later in a crash and get put on morphine in the ambulance. You just don't know. But I'm hoping that I'll never go back onto them now again. I'm sitting here. I'm confident. I won't. Very confident.
And I think that's it, because you're talking about it and you're normalising it and you're being so open about it. It's
I think people tell now as well.
Yeah.
It's like my wife. I think she always knew, but she didn't know the extent it was. But we look at old pictures and stuff like that, and you can just tell by people's eyes, by the way people are, and so yeah, I think she would be knowing before she even did a drug test if But like I said, I'm 99% confident that I won't do.
Yeah, brilliant. Any questions?
Yeah. Just you did. One of the issues I had was like, where were you getting them from? To me, it was always going to be a kind of like a professional. Those issues, and it seemed towards the latter that you were getting them off the internet, like getting them off from there, whatever.
GP as well.
GP, and it's just like because you said tramadol, that's bloody strong, like and it's issues with that. And then part of me started thinking, I know I'm thinking out of the box here, whatever, but I was thinking, thank God you weren't over in America. Like, you think of the OxyContin crisis actually over there with professionals.
I'll talk about there on holidays and all that. You hide them and stuff.
Bloody hell.
Dubai. They've got strict rules out there, but when you're addicted, you find a way to get things. When you need them, you go on holidays and stuff like that. So there's no way I could go on holiday for 2 weeks and not have my tablets, because I'd be in trouble.
Because I know the BBC been doing what week? Anyway, been doing the mental health week, whatever. What's his name? Paul
Merson.
Paul Merson, whatever. Like I don't know if you saw the program with him with the walking and things like that, similar to yourself and things like that. But the similarities that I've drawn from himself and you was the wife. That thing, whatever. I don't know if anybody else has seen this, whatever, but what I thought was beautiful about it, the whole programme to me was just a love letter to his wife. Things like that. I just thought how he felt he let her down.
Yeah.
Things like that, whatever, and how he wanted to go back and apologise and just say how much he loved her and things like that. And it's having that support and things that someone's so close. So thank God.
Yeah, but they beat themselves up as well. My wife thinks, how the hell did I not? Especially at the second and third time. But you lie, you're deceitful.
Yeah.
You hide things. I was hiding everywhere in the car. I was in the house, in hot, tall places, because no one could see them. Honestly, that was it. I was hiding them on cabinets, all sorts of stuff like that. So, but yeah, listen, I've been with my wife since I was 18, and yeah, she's just listen. I could have never picked anyone better to me. I've been with her all my life and always will be. And yeah, without doubt, without her, I wouldn't be sitting here now. She's the biggest reason that I'm still here.
Well done. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Chris. It's never easy telling your own story, but we're just so glad that you're out there, as an ambassador for this on social media and telling your story, and hopefully just normalising it so that people do actually feel that they know that there's people out there that will listen to them, people that will support them, that recovery's an option, all of these amazing things that you're talking about. We've got Mel Bowen coming on as the next guest today, who's going to be talking about local services and places where you can actually go for if you need help as well. So hopefully if anyone is listening, they'll find that really useful as well. But we can't thank you enough for coming on.
It's also as well, we'll say one thing, because if somebody that's not addicted but are thinking there's something quite not right there with someone, keep asking them. And they might tell you to do one, they might get, annoyed, angry, but keep on at them, because eventually they'll know that they need help and eventually they will ask for it. So that's the biggest thing as well. If you think someone's not right, just keep on at them, even if they hate you and block your number and stuff like that. Keep turning up, because you could be saving their life.
I was going to say you said the thing that's helped you the most is the support network that you've got around you. But you've got to make that internal decision yourself as well.
You have. I think you get, like I said, the first turning point was standing on the roof in Bury. That was the seesaw moment, I call it. One way, obviously, I wouldn't be here, and the other way, you fight back, and you do. And then, obviously, the ones off the internet, that reaction I had to them, thinking if I keep taking these, I'm going to die, without a shadow of a doubt. I don't know what was in them, but it certainly weren't what was on the box. So you do hit certain moments, which, like I said, I call it the seesaw moment, and that's your moment then when you know that you've either got to say something or do something or ask for help, or there's no way back.
I suppose before that point you were completely lost, but since that moment,
and don't be scared as well.
You've had lapses, but you know you're strong enough to get through.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, and you know, it's scary. It is. You know, addiction is one of the worst things. You know, it's obviously one of the worst things I've been through, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But you can get through it, and you can stay in recovery. You can have lapses and still come out of it as well. You know, they call it, when I was in rehab, it's not a relapse. You know, you can have lapses. But you can fight back from that again. So if you are doing that, thinking I've done it so many times, just keep trying, and try different things as well.
Can I just ask you, two questions came out for me. One is that you mentioned it about being in the public eye, and you're famous. Certainly in Liverpool, you're famous, but as a footballer, so it's dealing with that, I think, because you mentioned it to some extent, but also 2 years. 2 years before you're saying about the serotonin levels, and that's the shock for me in the sense that it takes so long. So how have you've said recently that you feel that your mood is dipped. 2 years seems a long time. How have you kept your motivation?
Well, the Liverpool thing, in the eye, I thought there couldn't be any hiding place. So I didn't want any hiding place. It wasn't for sympathy after. I just thought, I am in the public eye, and I thought it could hopefully help people as well, but I thought, don't hide it. So that's the only reason. I thought, everyone knew I am, everyone's going to have eyes on me. You know, everyone's going to be thinking, is he or isn't he not? And that's what I want. You know, that's what I want, because that's what will keep me in recovery as well. And the other thing, what was the other thing, sorry?
2 years.
The serotonin, yeah. It is a long time, isn't it? But I suppose I was on them for 10 years, you know, on high doses, so you're bound to do stuff, and it messes you up in your brain. So whether hopefully it will get back to it. I'm going down to Parkland Place tomorrow. I went to rehab for the day. I'm going to see a psychiatrist down there, because they possibly think I could have maybe bipolar, which the dips I've been having, massive dips. So I'm looking forward to going down there tomorrow, because I don't feel right at the minute at all, which is, you know, not what I've been feeling the previous few months. So there is, you know, whether it's just waiting for them serotonin levels to get back up again. Hopefully it is that, but it's just getting through each day and stuff like that now, and keeping active and doing the work through the Liverpool Foundation is brilliant for me. You know, I love it. Going to different things, seeing different people, you know, trying to make a difference in the area, and he's amazing for me. I'm involved with a lot of stuff. We've got playing Paul Merson soon, actually. We've got the Walk-ins Brilliant game coming up.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Sunday, I'm involved with Yappa, which is a mental health app, and Positive Parcel, Build My Gift Box, and so we're I'm trying to keep busy, but trying to do things that I would have liked, and I got the help I needed, certain bits, and give that to people going forward.
Being in the community, it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, listen, we've you know, my daughter was born in Liverpool, you know, well, just outside Liverpool, but we've lived up here 21, 22. We won't move from here now. You know, I owe it. You know, I'm a Liverpool fan. As I said, I take my daughter to the games, but being in the community and listen, I had no idea what the foundation did, the LFC Foundation. When I got involved, I thought it was just football. I thought it was just a few football sessions, and then, you know, they run nearly 50 projects now, 50 programmes all over Merseyside, you know, helping the smallest of kids to families, adults, everybody. So it's amazing to be part of that. But listen, I only do a fraction of what some of the people that work for the foundation do, and there's some incredible staff members there but there's also some amazing people in Merseyside that are doing incredible stuff that people will never ever hear of.
Exactly. I think the last thing to do, Chris, is just plug this charity football match, because I've seen the lineup and it sounds amazing. So let's get some people down there.
Yeah, so it's at Doncaster. It's a week on Sunday.
Yeah.
I think it's 2:00, 2:30 kick-off. So there is, you know, I think Chris Waddle's playing, Merson, Letizia. Wow. Rudder Razor's playing. Yeah. Yeah. So I messaged him saying, don't smash me on a set piece. But yeah, listen, what we do through Walk-ins Brilliant is we give to lesser known mental health charities. So we'll buy them equipment and stuff like that. So we've bought bikes for bereaved dads, we've bought fishing equipment, we've bought a bus to get people to and from hospital. So when you donate, you don't really know where the money goes sometimes, do you? So we wanted to do something different where we could say, right, this is what your donations are bought. So we're hoping it will go well. But like I said, I'm involved with a lot of brilliant charities. Like I mentioned Yappa before, the mental health app, that's coming out. It's out now, but it's getting upgraded soon. You know, workplaces as well, because we're doing a thing it's called Build My Box, and basically care for your employees. Build My Gift Box and Positive Parcel. So it's because people come into work and they'll be struggling, you know, and I think workplaces have got a bigger responsibility now, to a duty of care. You're doing it here. They've got a duty of care to the employees, to make them just put a smile on their face, or try and make them put, you know, through difficult times. So we're looking to do that through Jack Knowles, who set all that up, and I'm delighted to be involved with that.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for coming, Chris. Honestly, we found it
Pleasure.
so
Keep doing what you're doing.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
No worries.
You're listening to the Men's Mental Health Podcast, The Man Hug.
So in this month's Man Hug, we've decided to choose the topic of addiction, and addiction comes in lots of different forms. We've just had Chris's amazing story there around addiction and medication, and after this discussion we're going to listen to Mel Bowen's story, and also about local services for people who will need to access some support at some point. But for this part we thought we'd just focus on a topic which is quite hot at the moment, and there's a big need for people to start discussing it, and it is the gambling addiction. So I thought I'd just have a little bit of a chat around the science behind addiction and gambling first, because, you know, I love a brain. Us mental health nurses are big brain lovers. So with gambling in particular, gambling can stimulate the brain's reward system, so much like drugs or alcohol, and that can often lead to addiction. So for the chemicals or neurotransmitters, it is the release of dopamine. So the role of dopamine, dopamine is responsible for allowing you to feel pleasure, satisfaction and motivation. So when you feel good that you've achieved something, it's because you have a surge of dopamine in the brain. So for the likes of Conleth here, for example, this is when Leeds United get a very rare win. He gets this massive blast.
You cut deep. You cut deep, Dean. You know.
You get that massive blast of dopamine, don't you? You know, so... but when we have a gambling win, the brain releases dopamine quite a lot. But when we gamble often, our brain starts to get used to the dopamine. So it makes that winning feeling very difficult to achieve. So consequently, we may have to gamble more and more to feel the same levels of pleasure. But when people try to repeat those feelings, it often results in drastic consequences. And that's what we'll have a little chat about in a minute. We all like a study in academia, don't we? But one I found very interesting was a German study in 2005, and they used card games, the addiction of gambling through card games. And like drug addicts, they found that you had a loss of sensitivity to the high when winning, so subjects had lower than typical electrical activity in the brain, especially in key areas of the brain, such as the reward system. Studies show that contributing factors such as the environment, so things like social learning theory, your available resources, your age, certain mood disorders, substance abuse, cultural background and socioeconomic status may all increase the likelihood of becoming addicted to gambling. Gambling's just a behaviour at the end of the day, though. So we have spoke about this before, and you know how there's always a thought process. A thought makes you feel a certain way, and then your feelings then result in behaviours. So I'm going to pass you over to our stato, Conleth, who's going to give us a bit of a discussion around key statistics relating to gambling currently within the UK, where we sit, and in particular for males.
Yeah, I've got plenty of statistics here, and Ian, keep your hands above your desk, because I know you get sexual satisfaction from the collection of data. So, you know, the thing is, the issues that hands up. So the issues we've got to think of, like, you know, when it comes to it's actually statistically, and this is the sad bit about it is, statistics are so important because they do actually help us with these predictions. We can actually look at timelines and just thinking what is actually going to be the potential predicted path here with regards to it. But with the government papers that we actually have, like, you know, men are more likely to gamble than women. And, you know, the issue about it with these days, it is that thing around online gambling compared to women. So about 15% of it is about men, 4% of women. But then you also, you know, these gambling companies, they do actually thinking, okay, what can we do? So they actually would tailor make things for specific groups, specific subgroups, genders, and actually just go, what can we do to actually get these people to actually come into it as well? Overall, in 2018, there were 24.5 million people actually within England that actually gambled, and that's not just doing the scratch card every now and again, or the lottery, doing a lucky dip. That is actually coming into some hard estimates here. And in 2023, the economic analysis estimated an annual excess directed financial cost of government associated with harmful gambling, and that's harmful there, is equivalent to 412.9 million. Okay, so we have to think of those things, whatever the costs, we do have to think these things like take costs into account as well. The evidence actually does suggest, it does actually show that harmful gambling, it's a public health issue we have to think of, and it's not just the individual as well, it's the family, the people who are actually attached to it, people who are actually living and breathing it and things like that, going with it, so it could be loved ones. And those who are actually affected, most likely due to the effects from a gambler, those who actually are having the ripples of this, are going to be women as well. The most severe impacts of problem gambling actually felt within the family, immediate family members as well. And sadly, the way these things are actually going, it is actually, it's going higher and higher. Gambling-related harms as well, we'll go to consider here, whatever, is like between 1.05 to 1.77 billion. And unsurprisingly, in a way, we've got to think of, whenever it comes to gambling, whenever you look at it regionally, the Northwest, it's one of the highest alongside with the Northeast of the UK. And whenever we actually look at other things with regards to it, you think of the socioeconomic deprivation we actually have in it. So there are health inequalities, things like this, which actually does make these situations worse. Finally, just actually come into us, it's with young people and gambling. We've got to think of how this is actually increasing. With a study from the Gambling Commission survey, actually says young people, that's between the ages 11 to 16, reported participation in any gambling in the last 7 days was 11%. But that's actually gone down from 2019. So that was in 2019. It's gone down from previous. However, the proportion of any gambling within the months of actually has increased over a 12-month period. So just what come from us, it's not looking good, so we have to bear these things. And it is a multinational billion business, whatever. They're going to want this money, doing that, whatever. So I'll leave that at that. I think that's enough statistics.
On to Ian and his book.
If only. This is a book, Jackpot, came out last year, written by Rob Davis, who's a journalist. The subtitle is How Gambling Conquered Britain. And if you read the back, it talks about a searing expose of the sinister inner workings of the gambling industry. And I think it touches on, I guess, generally the politics of gambling. And the first thing that Dean had said is about that, the science. So the way that works within the gambling industry is this, the development of the pre-cortical, in terms of how the brain acknowledges gambling, is that it's a reward system, and they work and play on that. That doesn't actually develop properly to actually making decisions, thought-through, mature decisions, till you reckon till about the age of your mid-20s, 24, 25. You think, and we've heard from today and Jake in previous podcasts, the young people who've died. This book has a really thoughtful, heart-rending dedication to a young man called Jack Ritchie, who typifies, I think, how the gambling industry works. He killed himself in the end. He died, and his story, again, he had many lapses. A young man had an early success with his mates at lunchtime, went to a betting shop, and then they had this, all of a sudden they had £1,000 that they'd won from a gamble and a lunchtime going into a betting shop. That changed the course of his life, and it's one of the reasons why he died. His mum and dad are just some of the most thoughtful people who really tried to help him. Incredible support. Despite that, he still took his own life. And what this book does, I think, Rob Davis has written as a journalist a number of articles, and it's a collection of all those articles that he's looked at. So one of the things from the 2005 legislation that took place and the lead up to that was the time of New Labour. They came in 1997. They came into office, a landslide victory, so they could do what they want. They talk about Richard Caburn, who was the MP who took the portfolio of Minister of Sport, Media and Culture. He was getting his brief from Tony Blair, who then said, just before you go, Richard, Will you take gambling as well? And without knowing anything at all about gambling, that was added to this 2005, came into play 2007, the Gambling Act. And he acknowledges that he had absolute no idea when it actually came for gambling, and he was the minister responsible for this Gambling Act, which was described by Tom Watson, another MP. It talked about it was an analogue law in a digital age. It just, you had in 2007, the onset of the iPhone, you had a casino in your pocket. This legislation was absolutely, to say it was inept was to say that it just did not do enough in terms of the voracious nature of the gambling industry. And what he documents in this book is all the sorts of means and using of that data that's out there to pinpoint and target that chemicals, because they've got their background, they've done their research to target young people. And that's what we're facing, and it's an acknowledgement of that. The depth of their absolute disregard for human life is absolutely shocking to me, actually reading it. So it is a brilliant expose, and it's just to really understand. It's this idea, isn't it, that's out there that gambling, when the fun stops, stop is the idea in terms of gambling. So it's really a moralistic that it's your responsibility and you stop because it's just a bit of fun. And it really exposes, I guess, underneath that, what's actually at play and how gambling really how gambling has conquered Britain and why we need to be aware of it and its effect on not just the number of suicides, but the impact that has on people generally in terms of that.
Thanks very much, Ian. So that book is Jackpot, and it's by Rob Davis. So yeah, an amazing read. So some amazing points there for me, and in particular, this targeting of young people in particular, or vulnerable people as well. You only have to watch a football match these days, don't you? And there's probably about 6 or 7, gambling businesses who are advertising in between the adverts. When you look around a stadium, there's literally advertisement everywhere for different gambling. So yeah, picking their time is a very clever tactic, really. But sadly, it leads to some very horrendous outcomes, as discussed.
Just picking up on what you just said. So just after the Euros of the year, Sweet Caroline, massive anthem of the whole tournament for English fans, and then within 2 weeks of the tournament finishing, a well-known betting company have got that song on their advert with loads of happy people dancing around, and obviously the advertisement is just pushed so heavily to drive this addiction. I think it is slowly changing, but it's got to change more quickly.
And the thing is, as Ian pointed out, casino in your pocket, with a mobile phone, they collect the analytic data, they collect all this, they know, and then they know what buttons to push, things like that. I've only just found out recently the fact that if you haven't got money in your account or topped it up, you do not get the rewards, and they keep pushing you to do these things, whatever. All this is just completely new to me, and it was just, how many of these big companies, that's what their job is, to collect data so they know what buttons to push, whatever, but it is so frightening.
It is, and sadly we're just seeing the statistics go up and up really as well, especially for people who needing to access services, because debt problems lead into serious mental health problems. So we need services, we need help, we need provision. So Dan's been having a look at places where, if, for example, you or someone could benefit from accessing some help and support, what's available?
Yeah,
Dan?
so I mean, there's lots of things out there, as we've championed before in the first podcast of the Hub of Hope's kind of the first place we'd advise people to go to. But just by going on, hey, you've got your device in your pocket, in your hand, just go on your device and just Googling sort of support with addiction, support with rehab facilities, things like that. One of the key ones is Mind. I know Mind have had a lot to do with the Football League in the last few years, and the trying to promote the what they can offer. But I wonder how many people who bought the badges for their particular club actually went on to the Mind website and saw what support was on offer there. So yeah, so Mind's a key sort of charity, so mind.org.uk, which you may wish to sort of look into. Just the NHS website. So going on to the NHS websites and sort of typing in sort of access to services, pop in your postcode, see what's available in your area. Again, from the Mind website as well, sort of access to Frank. So if it's drug addiction, then you can get a link into the Frank resources, which if you don't know about, is more dealt with around substance abuse, and you can get information and support with regards to the different services there. A couple more websites. So Action on Addiction, again, for drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and any sort of addiction. www.actiononaddiction.org.uk. Turning Point's another one that I found, just so drug and alcohol support mainly there, so www.turning-point.co.uk. So there's loads and loads and loads of different services out there. Don't sit there thinking that you can't fight your addiction. Don't sit there thinking that you're all by yourself. There's definitely support every step of the way. You just need to access that support, and you're definitely not alone. There's so much resource out there to support.
Brilliant. I just want to go back to a point that Chris made before. If you are concerned about someone and you ask them and they say that everything's okay, ask them again. If you are concerned that someone is gambling or spending a bit of extra time down the betting shop, or seem to always be on their phone with these apps and things, just keep chipping away and asking them, because there is help out there. And half the time, if people don't know that there's support, they're not likely to go and access it already. So there's a lot of support out there. So don't be scared to have that conversation with someone. We've got Mel Bowen coming on after this short break, and Mel's going to be talking a bit about the Spider Project and local services.
You're listening to the Men's Mental Health Podcast, The Man Hug.
Okay, so we are very lucky to have our second guest with us today, and this is Mel Bowen, who a lot of you might know from Mel Bowen in the original series. Mel is a very well-known musician in the area, but we're here for Mel because he's the founder of the Spider Project, which is a creative arts and wellbeing recovery community project. So, Mel, welcome to the Man Hug podcast.
Thank you for having me, indeed. Thank you for having me.
All right, mate. So, obviously, we've had Chris Kirkland come in and talk about his own story with addiction. You must see this on a daily basis from all walks of life and different addictions and things. So, just give us a little bit of a background about your own story of, I remember you saying it's been about 30 years you've worked in recovery now, so.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Sadly, yeah. First thing I would say was I was genuinely honoured to sit there and listen to Chris talk, and as we just said in the little break there, I just want to recognise how brave that is, really, to come on and in anywhere to go on and tell your story in an open forum is really brave for somebody in Chris's boots. I, as an addictions worker, worked in addiction, as you say, for near 30 years now. And I just know how hard it is for people to come into that room for the first time and tell us, or even for the 10th time, but to go in and tell their story is difficult to do behind closed doors when the world isn't listening. So to then go on a podcast and to tell your story for the sake of those coming behind you, I think it's an incredibly brave thing. So I would first of all start with just saying that what I just witnessed with Chris, fantastic, and more power to him. More power to him. Me personally, as I say, I started working in Liverpool drug dependency units back in the early 90s. The reason for that, literally all of my mates, literally out of about 50 of us off the estate, the Wood Church, which I was originally my stomping ground. There was literally a handful out of about 50 of us that didn't end up addicted to heroin. And when I say 50 of us, like our gang, but then the wider circle, same story. Many of those people no longer with us. And like, I don't mean like in recent times, some of those lost their lives in their 20s and stuff. So, yeah. And my dad, which I never ever really bring up, because I don't really see this as a reason. People say, because your dad, my dad was a drinker. Can we swear on here? Yeah. So my dad was a piss pot, you know. So I don't really see that as a driver, but I'm sure it's in the mix somewhere. That I just felt like I just want to get involved and do something, and kind of, so I did.
So where was your first sort of like steps? What did you do?
So I left school with nothing. Education-wise, I left school with literally nothing. Put my 2 fingers up at a lot of them. Still got that anti-establishment bone in me, strong, you know. But left school with nothing because school was shite basically back then. And a friend of mine whose dad was a wagon driver until he was 40, a guy called Joe Martin. When Jimmy, my mate, got married, he got a grip of me and said, you need to get some education, son, you're a clever lad. And Joe was a wagon driver till he was about 40 odd. 6 kids, walked in, told his missus, I've packed my job in. And he retired as a linguistic and philosophy lecturer at Liverpool University and was like amazingly powerful at getting people like me off my knees and engaged in education. Was Joe, a real philosopher, a real working class hero. They do exist, they're out there, and Joe is, God rest his soul, Joe was massively instrumental in helping me through my degree. And then so when I'd done that, once I've got my degree, that gave me the opportunity to then apply for jobs in places like the drug dependency unit, which I'd never been able to have done. Back then it was very much a professional model. You had to be a nurse or a social worker or a doctor to work in addiction. There was very few scallywags in there, you know what I mean? So yeah, and so I started, I think, no, I didn't. I worked for Flinty Social Services first. I'd done a 6 month with them, and then I got my job in drug dependency unit.
So what types of things were you doing, you know, to help people during this period? Because, you know, it's funny saying being a scallywag in that area, but I think that's very useful, isn't it, really, so that people actually connect on a human level, you know?
Yeah, I think I recognised that very early doors, that, like, there was a lot of me. There was a lot more of me than perhaps people would think, but there was more people like me wanting to, but I think you do stick out a little bit, and the members, I don't call people clients or service users, we have members inside the project, so I think people spot you as someone that does give a shit. And certainly working in service, I'm not here to slate services. I think, you know, I run services myself now, and we certainly don't get it all right. It's very easy to sit but back then things were bad. Like, I can remember having heated conversations with somebody who shall remain nameless, but certain CPN who used to, like, shout people through from the waiting room by their surname like some kind of schoolmaster, and I was like, he's got a first name, you know what I mean? The methadone mill back then, you know, but yeah, so I think just really for me it was a very basic thing of, I suppose, back to Joe as well, Joe Martin, who you know, is like, surely we'll get a bit more of a difference if we treat people as people and not treat people as a methadone prescription or as an illness or as a diagnosis. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and it really was like that then, or seemed to be to me anyway. It just seemed to be like, you know, Williams, you're next, you know, or Williams 80 mm F, and I'm like, well, his name's Stephen, you know, he's sadly a Man U fan. he's a father, he's a painting jacket, you know, he's a sum of many things. He's not just a heroin user, so it's about trying to, for me it was about trying to define people in different ways, I suppose, and to get to that, rather than just focusing on, I think that's, for me, it's that thing of, I think Chris Kirkland was talking earlier about not just focusing on the issue, on the problem. It's like, if you just focus on the issue all the time, then little wonder you're just going to remain in the issue. And
it's interesting you say, you know, that philosophy of just treating people like people, because I remember when I originally met you, when the Spider Project was in Woodside in a smaller hut, and straight away your philosophy was, you know, that's what we do. People are people, they come in, they turn the kettle on, it's no us and them, it's everyone working together to enable recovery. And I think that's been kind of your mantra, what's helped Spider grow, hasn't it? So just tell us a little bit about the Spider project, what it is and where it is now.
Spider project actually wasn't started by me. Spider project was started by a guy called Jerry Linford in Liverpool. He started it in Blackburn House with that idea of using creativity and the creative arts and treating people as people. Very similar to myself in his ideas, and I started the Whittle one. So I did, I literally started that from scratch. Spider project was originally set up to break that revolving door, really, of the methadone mill. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but it's just a short way of saying it. There's that treatment services, clinical, everything focused around doctors and urine tests, and it was about saying, well, taking a different approach, really, treating people as people, and very much, as you mentioned before, being a musician, recognising in my own sanity and in my own sort of growth the power of creativity and the power of being able to change focus. When Chris was talking about earlier, I keep going about Chris, but I was quite taken by what he was talking about. It's that them dark mornings and them dark times is having a focus to move away from that, and creativity's brilliant at that. So with Spider Project, the aim was to move away from a therapeutic model. We don't do therapy. I always say, there's a therapeutic value in doing something and doing it well. That's Jerry's line. Jerry Linford used to say that, and I picked that up off him. I'm a bit of a magpie, there is a therapeutic value to doing something and doing it well, but I don't make it therapy. So that could be scoring a goal with your head. That could be writing a piece of creative writing. That could be doing some film production, photography, playing a guitar, or whatever, running, walking, whatever, but I don't make it therapy. And that's been our approach, is to... And as somebody that worked in treatment services, I ran a mobile needle exchange for 10 years before running Spider and for the NHS. And don't get me wrong, I'm not slating clinical services. There's an absolute need for them, and there's an absolute, we have to have those things in place. But also we need to recognise there's a social aspect to people as well, other than just a bottle of medicine. So Spider was about utilising creativity, moving away from sort of therapy, and just literally, as we said before, treating people as treating people. I can remember having conversations in drug services where workers would be saying, so hang on, so they're going to come in, talking about like the members, or talking about the people who use the services, they're going to come in and they're going to use our kitchen, and they're going to use our kettle and our toilets. And I was like, it seems quite mad now, because we've moved along. In the last 20 years, we have 15, we've moved quite along the line, but they were conversations. And what I will say is interesting is it's only really the last 10 years that Spider's moved into mental health as such, as a because to me it's all one and the same, people are people. But I find myself having them same conversations now within the mental health world, because without slating anyone, everyone's doing amazing work, but I do find that mental health services are quite behind the curve with relating to stuff like that. And with drug and alcohol recovery services, they've sort of had them conversations, it seems to me, 20 odd plus years ago about, and I'm not saying they're all compartmentalised, I'm sure they are getting better, but my experience is there's a long way to go for mental health services, so without being too controversial.
So in terms of the Spider project, then, if I was to come for the first time and things, what would I expect?
A smile, no lanyard, no urine test, no bulletproof glass, come on in, have a cup of tea. So my ninny always said to me, if you go somewhere, lad, and they don't make you a cup of tea within 2-3 minutes, get out, because they don't want you there. And there's an awful lot of truth in that. Dolly taught me that. Dolly was like my mum, really. But it's very true, So I say to everyone that works in our place, there's so much value in, go back to the DDU, When I worked in the DDU, the idea of making someone a cup of tea was like, wow. Yeah, and they'd come in after pouring rain. They might have walked from Anfield to get to town. Freezing cold. No, you weren't allowed to say. Back then it was like, time management. You're meant to be teaching them Mel, and it'd be like, we've come a long way since that. But we come to Spider, no urine test, and somebody just to talk to you on your terms. What are you here for today? What you need from us? What we offer is huge. Is we offer near plus 50 plus workshops and sessions a week now, just in that one centre in Hamilton Street, and that is everything from film production, photography, creative writing, every form of music. We've got a music studio, so we do piano lessons, singing lessons, choirs, music production, you know, the different aspects of music, and then all the sort of practical things around employment, IT, all that sort of stuff you would imagine.
But why are they important then, Mel? You know, what's the point of all of them, and what would you say their main sort of aim is?
For me, getting people off their knees and keeping them off their knees. So back to Joe Martin, when Joe helped me about getting an education and keeping me up. Yeah. Really, it's okay getting someone up. It's how do they stay up? They've got to keep themselves up. Education's the one, isn't it? I say to my two kids, if I said to if our Paddy or our Barney were in the room, if I said, what are they go, education. Dad, yeah, you've heard it a million times. But I said, build yourself a pair of them, because when someone says, you will be here at 9 o'clock, you'll see that I won't. I'll be when I'm ready to come, because I've got education, and that's so powerful. And allows that really. So,
and I think as well it gives people structure and routine, which is so important, isn't it? You know, if you are, you know, wanting to stay abstinent from drug or alcohol or anything like this, you know, having routine and structure is probably the most important thing, isn't it? And also that support network around you as well. So how do you find, you know, with a typical case study of someone who uses Spider Project, how do they sort of tap into those resources?
I think it's about connection. First and foremost, it's about connecting people. So I boast about, because I don't boast about Spider in terms of how it's grown or that. What I've always counted is the timetable, how big the timetable is. So when we first started, we had 4 courses a week: photography, creative writing, which was run by me, football, which was run by me badly, and we did an outward bound because that was part of the deal with Wirral Council. We had to run an outward bound. So there's 4 things, and I was always like, well, that's great, but what if you don't like football, and you're not great at writing, you know, you can't write, etc. So it was always about building that timetable, and so we've really grown that timetable, and that is me boast about. But it's about connecting. So I say, as much as proud as I am, and as great as that timetable is, actually it's the connection that's the magic, and that's what people really get from coming to Spider. Again, breaking away from traditional drug services. When we first started, everything in drug services was done one-to-one. Come into a room and we'll talk about your drug use. Yeah. Well, great, but people have been doing that for 20, 30 years and we're still hooked on heroin. Yeah. And like, so it's like, how do we break that? So Spider was like, well, we're going to do everything in groups. So when we set Spider up, certainly my version of Spider, it was like, I just looked at everything that was going on. It was like, everything they're doing, we're going to do something differently. So like, no lanyards, I mean, you know, all that sort of stuff. Sounds pretty basic really, but at the time that was, but I think it's that connection thing is real, and that is massive, and it's something people really do get from coming to Spider, because a lot of the times people are isolated, they are cold, they are lonely, so, you know, addictions and are almost side issues in effect, and mental health and what have you. So first and foremost is that connection, and building from there, building resilience in, I know the buzzwords, but building resilience into what people do and how they live their lives, and it's giving them the tools and giving them the escape and the refocus or something to focus away, because everything is always focused on. My thing is, we always talk about is people's issues, and that's what I always found is, you know, you're trained to talk about the issues, and you know, so to talk about your drug use. No one ever says, what are you good at? Or that was my thing with treatment services. Nobody ever said to, imagine me, Steve, you know, what are you good at? Like, you know, who do you support? Exactly, you know, I won't say the other side, but you know, but it's about focusing on other stuff as opposed to just, and I think that's what Spider really does, is it gives people an opportunity to connect, to grow and develop in their time, but also to gain, you know, and it's been very important to me to, I mean, we're now, most, not all, a lot of the courses that we run are accredited, which was against the first, it was against that, I thought it was a bit, you know, I wanted to, my ideas was it's about bringing people in, and I thought, well, we accredit stuff, it's going to put barriers up, but it doesn't, that's just my snobbery, it doesn't do that, and accrediting stuff gives somebody the opportunity to, it might only be a level 1 open award, but it gives someone, that means something in here, in educational establishments, level 1, level 2. I've done this at Spider, great, you can do level 3 here, so it's that stepping stone into education, and now we've got Wirral Met coming in, running courses in Spider, so that's that bridge, which is fabulous. People always talk about the recovery bridge, You know what I'm on about, don't you? That recovery bridge, which Mark Gilman was always dead keen to talk about, that sort of, you know, your treatment services and your recovery services. It should be a bridge, but it should be a two-way thing, because as Chris was saying before, people have lapses, people have relapses. You need to be able to go back over that bridge if you need to, and immediately get back into sort of treatment if that's what's required. But I like that. I like the education bridge too, and that is like really important to me, is as important, if not more, because if you're going to get people over to recovery side, abstinent recovery, if you get people over to that, it's how to keep them there, and that's about giving them the tools to build resilience in. I think that's education for me. Definitely. It really is. Yeah.
So in terms of, you know, if someone was worried about someone maybe, you know, with addictions, how do you think they should broach that subject with them, you know? What types of things should people say? Because some people are often a bit worried that they'll say the wrong thing, you know, and make things worse.
Yeah, no, I think you just got to be open and honest. It's very, very simple. I know, you know, there is no rocket science in it, and which is why we were talking earlier, or I wasn't, doing all the talking. Earlier we were talking about services being professionalised, and now there's a wealth of people. I always used to argue the greatest untapped resource in substance misuse world was people with substance misuse issues. They're the experts, and we never used to tap into that. Now we do that massively and really well. So I would, you know, I think you go a long way to find any of those who want to start pontificating about stuff. Just be open, just be honest, and say, I'm concerned here. You know, what's going on? Yeah.
What would be the next step for people then? Where should they go if they needed help? Then what would you advise?
Obviously, it will depend. There's a whole range of factors on that, age and whatever the issue is. But you know, the treatment services are accessible these days. They are. I mean, back in the bad days, you know, people were looking at possibly 9-month waiting lists. Those days are gone now. So certainly, if you, but it would depend on what type of drug we're talking about. You know, certainly alcohol, opiate addiction. You know, you need to be going straight into the likes of Willow Ways in Birkenhead, with CGL, Willow Ways to Recovery, would be your first step. Brilliant. Is that helpful?
That's really helpful, and I think just touching on that, because Willow Ways, there was it was in the BBC recently, wasn't it? You know, there was a lot of coverage and media around the recovery villages. It's now known, Birkenhead. It's fast becoming regarded as one of the best places in England for addiction support. So how have they created that, and what's working well there, would you say, Mel?
I think a little bit like Spider Project. It's happened generically. It's just organically, I should say. It's just organically grown. And I think what that is obviously Wirral has a long-standing history of drug addiction, and so consequently has got a long-standing history of trying to treat that, so as a or respond to it. So as a result of that, there are a wealth of services in and around Birkenhead, probably more so than anywhere per square mile in the UK, to be honest with you. And so that's just grown organically. But what we have done is we've made, I know we're working together in partnership, but it's actually, there's been a real concerted effort to work more in partnership, which for me is, and I was, you know, that again, Spider Project, great, like, but it's you know, the world doesn't end there. There's a wealth of stuff, and there's a wealth of stuff outside Spider that people can utilise to keep moving with their own recovery, you know. And there's a wealth of even service user led services now, genuine service. Like people talk about that's a tick box on a flyer, but there's actually services opened now by former members of our space, our spaces, and are running them services without a doctor or a nurse or anything in sight, or even a Mel. You know
how valuable is that then, Mel? You know, having sort of experts by experience, or, you know, recovery mentors, whatever the sort of, like, you know, the head and people throw around. How valuable is that to, you know, to go to someone, and if you're struggling yourself, and see that actually, you know, someone's gone through the same, but now they've come out the other side, and
I think it's absolutely massive, mate. I think the proof is in the pudding of that one. Like. But I think it's absolutely huge. It's got to be done from the right agenda, though. That's the only thing I would say is it has to be a genuine agenda, which is about spreading the word and spreading the love, you know what I mean? But and also I would just say, you know, not everybody with lived experience always has the answer, because they'll have the answer to their problems, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they can meet Peter and Paul's, because you know that. But they people with lived experience are exactly that, aren't they? Lived experience. So who's anyone to argue with that? You know, we need to have that in the mix, but not just as a tick box. That's always been my problem. It's been a tick box. So you know, over 50% of the staff at Spider are people with lived experience, but that's not because they've got lived experience. That's because they're the right person for the job, and they know they know their onions, and that lived experience stuff brings something to the pot, you know.
So much more value so much more value to it, doesn't
Absolutely, it? Yeah. And I thought you said social value, but I was going to say it is social value, social capital. It's social capital that, you know, people in recovery, that's the one thing I find, we give people in recovery, we build all this social capital into their journey, but then sometimes they'll find difficulty in spending that social capital because the community is still like, no, he's the one that used to, you know, and it's so important to allow people in to do the work that we're doing, so that the community can see, blooming heck, look at him, and that is such a valuable thing. I think probably more so, it's valuable for somebody, say, in addiction, to come in and see, because that's obviously to see someone who I used to use with him, and there he is now working in the service and doing what he does or she does. There's value to that, but I think also something really important to me is the families and carers and stuff as well of those people, because they often get forgotten. You know.
Yeah, such an interesting point, isn't it? You know, you just say bringing people through, and then if they end up like volunteering and in full-time employment through it as well, it's so inspirational as well, but also for families to see it's an incredible thing as well. Yeah. Anything you want to add?
I wouldn't say just thanks for that, whatever. And I just thought it was lovely that you actually said about the Wirral, about the Wood Church. One area that I used to work in for a long time was Birkenhead North, down the North End, and there at the time was the Ford Estate, you know, the Beechwood Estate. And,
always be the Ford to me, Con.
It is. I totally agree. And the issue about it is that, like, you know, from there, as you know, the drug problem actually happened down there. And for those who may not know, there was an article written in the Observer, 2006, Enter the Dragon. Absolutely fantastic article, and I know it goes back to the issue of using marijuana, as people maybe call it, like, you know, things like taking pot, whatever, and there was none of that about it, so this thing called heroin came along. But the issue about it was, and this article in particular, Enter the Dragon, was just like, just you lot go there and just leave us be, like, you know, you've got, it's, for those who don't know it, it's kind of like, it's avenues, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th Avenue, whatever. It's got everything you need there. And as the article said, all it actually needed was like outposts and barbed wire around it, like, you know, just stay away from us. But from there, we did actually have things like PADA, Parents Against Drug Abuse, actually started in that area. But once again, that was kind of like maybe, is that the parents doing that, the
John
authoritarian?
Keel.
Yeah, exactly. I could show you the house where there's actually who had to meet.
You know,
total babe.
Keel,
Total babe, whatever. And the thing about it is that what I love about this is just like, it's how the community does stuff around this, whatever. And this is what I'm feeling with this now. Yeah, PADA, you know, they've done their bit and things like that, but it's that stepping stone and things like that. And this is the next gorgeous step we're actually having. So thank you so much for it. Seriously, like, you know, it's, I think it's a beautiful, gorgeous thing, and your head, hopefully you can get it through the door, because you're doing absolutely brilliant. So thank you. And on everybody who you work with, the projects. That's it.
I want to jump on that as well. I think the accolades will continue for you, Mel. But, you know, I've known Spider Project for years, and it's an amazing thing. But to see it grow and grow, and, you know, it's an amazing thing. And I think if anyone ever gets the opportunity to go and see it, then please do. It's a fantastic place.
What I would just like to throw in is the Compañeros Crisis Cafe, which is really important, if we can mention that, because that's we were lucky enough to get hold of the old beer cellar in Price Street in Birkenhead, which was a derelict building. We've refurbed that with NHS monies, like, doesn't belong to us, belongs to the NHS, but we operate out of it, and we run a crisis cafe, so it's 10 in the morning till 10 at night, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's an open door, no referrals off the doctor or it's self-defined crisis, and that is not an abstinent space like Spider. That is just open to anyone with any issue, whatever that might be, and that could be Man United got beat yesterday, and I can't believe it. My life's in back, you know. I'm joking, but you know, it can be whatever your issue, your crisis can be, and it's what you define as a crisis. And so, I would just plug that because that's doing some amazing work, and it's an incredibly busy space.
Yeah.
But long may that continue.
Brilliant. So that's Campaneros for everyone. So check out on these are all on the website as well, aren't they, Mel? Your own Spider Project and Campaneros. But do have a look because they're incredible services, and that's why we thought it was so valuable to bring Mel in today. You know, we've listened to Chris's personal story, and one of the things we wanted to send people off with was to have a look what exists on your doorstep. There is great services like Campaneros and Spider Project. And we always plug the Hub of Hope on the podcast as well, but I'm sure you can check out as well what's available in your area as well. But Mel, thank you so much for coming in. It's been so useful. And as Conleth said, well done with everything you do, and thank you for everything you do as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
If you or anybody else you know is struggling with their mental health, visit hubofhope.co.uk or download the app today and find local and national mental health support.
Please make sure that you follow us on Twitter. It's @TheManHug. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next month.